5 years into my PhD, and I am struggling. I feel like I'm not making any progress, and I'm a failure. So I said to my therapist, I feel like I'm not making any progress. I think I'm a failure. And, she's a therapist. She's like, well, why? What makes you say that? Why do you feel that way? Where do I begin? I don't have any first author papers. My experiments aren't good. I don't know my science like everybody else around me. And this goes on, and there's a lot of conversations around this. And at some point, she asked whether I thought that the fact that I prioritized ultimate had anything to do with this. And I was like, no. Ultimate, I could play ultimate frisbee, but it's not my priority. Getting my PhD in neuroscience is my priority. And I play ultimate, but that makes me well-rounded, and it makes me just not a person with a one-track mind. So I don't think that that's the reason that I'm having these problems. But I thought about what she said. And I guess she had a point given what she knew about my life. I was flying to Europe every 4 weeks to practice with the German national team that spring in advance of world championships. And of course that was an important thing. And I wouldn't say it was more important than my PhD, but why do I have to choose? So by the time I was flying to Japan for world championships, I wasn't really thinking about this whole debate. I was just thinking about the tournament. And the week that I had to travel in Japan afterward. So I play with the team, and the tournament's great. And then the 1 week I have, just armed with my Japanese rail pass, I make my way from Osaka to Tokyo, taking sort of the unconventional route along the coast, making it up as I went along, just hitting up random beach towns instead of the major sites in Japan. But it was completely amazing. It was one of the best weeks I've ever spent traveling, and I'm thinking this is kind of one of the reasons that I do this, because I wouldn't have gotten to see this otherwise. But sadly, a week is just laughably inadequate for a first trip to Japan, but it was all I had, and so I'd made the most of it, and now it was coming to an end, and I had my last day. My last day was in Tokyo, and I'm sure you could spend a month in Tokyo alone, but I just had a day, and my flight wasn't until after midnight. So I'm I'm going to make the most of it. And I can't do that if I've got all my bags with me. So I'm going to go to the airport and check my bags and then just hit the streets. And I'm not somebody who even some of you guys know me. I don't even like to get to the airport more than 5 minutes before I have to. But that day I got to the airport 13 hours before my flight, because I just want to get those bags dropped off and then go. And then before I left, I had another great idea. See, all the flying that I had done to practice that spring had catapulted me into the ranks of the platinum frequent flyers. So that meant access to the first class lounges at the airport. And free food and free drinks and internet and nap stations and all this stuff. But all I wanted to do was, I'm at the airport already. I'm a poor PhD student. Who could begrudge me going into the first class lounge to stuff my tote bag full of free food before I hit it in one of the most expensive cities on the planet? So that's what I do. And I get on the computer, grab some stuff, and I head back out. And I just want to get to the train to get back into Tokyo and spend my last day in Japan, but I can't find the exit. And I would like to say it had nothing to do with the fact that there was a self-serve wet bar in the first class lounge, but I couldn't be sure, and I wasn't going to spend any time thinking about it, so I just went to the security checkpoint, the x-ray machines that I had just come through, and I motioned for help. And so this Japanese airport employee starts coming towards me. She's preemptively embarrassed, what does this person want from me? And I just say, oh, hi, can you tell me how to get out? I just want to leave. And she's she's so relieved because it's an easy question. And she's like, no. And I was like, no, you don't understand. No, like I have a ticket and my passport. I just want to leave and come back, look at my flight. I'm not leaving until like 10 hours from now. I just want to leave. And she says, it's not possible. And I'm like, what? No. I'm thinking of all the other airports I've ever been in. Like, when do you ever go into the airport and then they don't let you back out? In Portland, you can walk through security, and if you wanted to, I don't know why you would, you could just turn right around and come back out. And now they're telling me I can't do it. And this doesn't make any sense. But I'm not getting anywhere with her. And I keep talking to people, and they keep saying, you can't, it's not possible. And I'm like, why? But there's no answer, there's just, you can't. And this doesn't make any sense, and so many things don't make sense. I am so frustrated. It's my last day in Japan. It's like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm sitting in the airport asking myself why this is happening. And there's no good answer to that question, why? Like, why didn't I just leave right when I dropped off my bags? Why did I have to come in here? How did I get myself into this mess? But these questions don't have any good answers, and I'm really good at those types of questions, but they still don't have any good answers. And when the fourth person tells me that it is not possible to leave, that's when it starts to sink in. And I just sit down at the nearest gate and I start crying. And I'm just crying because I'm sad, I'm mad. I'm mad at the airport, and I'm mad at myself for making all these decisions, and I don't understand it because something about it doesn't sit right with me, that it doesn't make sense. And I spend the rest of the afternoon in the purgatory of the first class lounge. I know, and I don't think I have ever been less interested in free food or free alcohol. But I was despondent. I just watched business travelers come and go, and I watched the minutes tick by, and I just asked these unanswerable questions, and I kept coming back to this idea that it didn't make sense. But I was trapped, and so I had this time to think about all the things that didn't make sense. Like, it didn't make sense that I was in Japan playing the World Championships with the German national team. And it didn't make sense that, I hadn't actually even planned a vacation that didn't involve an ultimate tournament or a wedding in over 7 years. And it didn't make sense that I would get really mad when my teammates would come to practice 5 minutes late. But some days I just would roll into the lab at 10:30 in the morning because I was too tired when the alarm went off. And for that matter, it didn't make sense that I could spend 12 hours to prove how dedicated I was. I could spend 12 hours in the lab and then still feel like I didn't get anything done. So it's all these things didn't make sense, but they were still true. There was nothing about sense or no sense that changed my situation. And asking why wasn't getting me closer to a PhD, and asking why wasn't getting me out of the airport. I used to talk with my therapist, how does knowing anything about my problems actually help when it comes down to it? If knowing is half the battle, then I'd be halfway out of the airport by now because I know there is a way. I just walked in, I know there's a way out. Don't tell me there's not. But I was still very much 100% in the airport. And it stayed that way for about 9 hours until eventually some particular airport employee was contacted and came and was able to escort me out of the departure area. So she came and we sort of made some chit chat, and at this point I only had 3 hours left. I wasn't gonna see much of Tokyo, but I had to get out of the airport, and we walked to this unmarked door that was right beyond the whole security checkpoint, the one I had been at all day crying and asking and everything. It was 10 or 20 yards beyond that. She opened the door. And as we're walking down the one flight of stairs to the entrance hall of the airport, she asked me the same question that it felt like I'd been answering all day. And I said, yes, in Portland, you really can walk back out of the airport after you come in. And she smiled and nodded, and she's very polite. But I think she wasn't totally convinced that that was true. And at that point, even I wasn't sure anymore.